So in this video, we want to talk about your transmission line drops, which is another portion of your closed book exam. What you have is utility, transmission line, and commercial home. So your utility is 50,000 volts. Okay, this is something you just got to know. It's roughly 50,000, could be 60, but it's a lot, okay? Your transmission line is always 480 and it's always RMS. If you're measuring something, again, it's RMS. And your commercial home is 240, 120. Now, your commercial will have a three-phase drop and your single home is a single-phase drop. The range of your 240 is going to range, and it could range really anywhere from 208 to 240. And your 120s can range from 100 to 130, but it's roughly you got to give and take 30 here and there, right? Roughly this is 32, this is 30, but this is the range. Now, in the home, that's roughly all your plugs are roughly 120. 120 is measured out of the outlet at RMS. And your dryer is 208. And your HVAC is 208. It draws a lot of power. Okay. So how does this work? So the way these voltages drop are not through resistors, because if it's resistors, you're going to lose. You just want to transmit. Okay. So here you have 50,000 volts. I'm running really small. Okay. 480, assume this is at 500 volts. Now, this is going to be 480 volts, and this is roughly 240 at 120. I'm making the numbers easy. Do not make difficult numbers for yourself. The actual equation for voltage mutual inductance is V1 over N1 equals V2 over N2. So, a little bit of algebra to determine the coil ratio is N2 over N1 is equal to V2 over V1. This is your coil ratio. Okay. To determine your coil ratio is the number of turns. So this one is the number of turns of the wire. Okay. So simply put, what is our V1 is here, our V2 is here. This is going to be 500 over 50,000. Okay. Now, what is that ratio? The ratio is very simple. It's 500 divided by one more zero, 50,000, it's 0.01 or 1 to 100, okay? Or you can just divide this out, you get 1 to 100, it's not very difficult. So it's 1 over 100, okay? Let's do this one. Let's call this is N1, N2, N3, N4, right? And let's just call this N5 for whatever reason, right? So N4 over N3 is what? 240. Let me write this. 240 over 480 gives us what? 1/2. It's a 1 to 2 ratio. If we look at N5 over N4, we get 120 over 480, which is 1 over 4, right? So it's 1 to 4 ratio. So what does that mean? Does it mean you have one coil and then you have 100 coils? I mean, one turn on a coil and 100 turns? That makes no sense. You can't have one turn. So if I said that, how would you write it? Said, okay, so the ratio would obviously be, if one was 100, this top one was 100, and this obviously would have to have how many turns, right? This would obviously have to have, 10,000 turns, right? So roughly you would have 100 turns on this end, 10,000 turns on that end. Is however you do a makeshift on that one. Let me make the arrow a little more clear for all of you. Okay. And here you would have what? 1 to 2. So if I had this top one is 100, bottom one would be 200. If the top one here is 100, the bottom one would be 400. So these are your turns. Okay. Now this whole thing is called a step down transformer. It's stepped down because the voltage is dropping. Okay. Now, I can ask you, what is a step-up transformer? Okay. The step-up transformer is another example. Is if you put N2 to N1, I want to step up the voltage, right? If I want to step up the voltage from, let's say, I don't know, let's take a 10-volt battery, right? Or a 9-volt battery, and we want to go, let's say, some sort of a taser, right? And we want 50,000 volts off a taser, right? Or 10,000. It really doesn't make a difference. It's a lot. Okay. How do I do this? So I would have assume this is 10 volts, and let me just kind of draw a line here. So this is your step down transformer. Okay. So roughly you would say this is 10 volts going to 50,000 volts, right? So how does a 10 volt battery operate to a utility transmission? I mean, that's just crazy, right? How do you do that? Well, it's simply the same coil ratio would allow it. So your V, you start with, you're going from 10 to 50. So this is going to be your V1, this is going to be your V2. So N2 over N1 ratio is V2 over V1, which gives you 50,000 over 10, which is going to be what? A 5,000 to 1 ratio, right? So if this coil here was 100, so let's analyze the 5,000 to 1 ratio. What happens if this coil is 100, the bottom coil, then this coil would be what? 500,000 turns, okay? So by turns, then you can create a step up transformer. Okay? And this is how you raise and lower the voltage. Okay? This is the closed book portion of your exam. You will have, definitely you'll have this, and you'll have some form of this. Okay? Some form. Okay? This is the closed book portion. You can't have any notes out for this, so please learn this well.